Hey everybody, this is Grisanzio from the Oracle Groundbreakers team. We're back here in Tokyo for the Java Japan User Group CCC conference. I'm here with Chris Engelbert. Chris, welcome.
Wow, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Chris, you gave a very interesting talk earlier. I was in and out of it for a couple of times. You did an oopsless operation. And so just to let you know, oopsless is something that's going to attract me. So when things break, I assume that's what oops means.
Yes, exactly. It's about building a resilient, reliable application. If you use your bank, you don't want to be services offline because you want to transfer the money. That's the whole point about your bank, right? So that's the idea of you don't want a service that goes, oops, I'm gone, sorry.
So give me some examples, because you had multiple slides there with suggestions. You had slides with things that were blown up and blackouts. You had slides with spaghetti cables and your data centers, things that I would do, right? So give me some examples of some of the suggestions you were giving.
Right, so there's multiple situations that you want to overcome. One of it is a power outage. I mean, we're living in a world where thankfully power outages are very uncommon. But I made the example of San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, or whole Bay Area, that because of the wood burning had to completely shut off power. And I was like, wow, it still happens, right? So that's one of the things you want to overcome. Another one is cabling, human error, all those kinds of things that just happen because, well, we can't fix humans for good and bad reasons. So there's a couple of ways on how to actually fix that. One reason is to introduce circuit breakers. So you want to try to access a backend service if it failed for a couple of times, you're like, okay, it doesn't seem to work right now, so let's cut it off for now and just send 1 out of X requests to see if the backend is available again. Stuff like that. Timeouts, we want to define timeouts. Everything that makes the application more reliable and to make sure that the application actually responds, or if it doesn't respond, we have a way to fail over to give the user some kind of, a nice response.
So how many of these things are practical in the sense of developers and ops people should be doing these things?
I think they're all practical. They're all coming from my own experience. So I just recently built, I'm next to my standard job, I'm building my own startup, which heavily relies on an infrastructure because it's an IoT startup. So we need to make sure that the application is available that actually takes the measurements from the IoT devices. And for that reason, this is all from my own experience. The important thing is, and that's one of the things I said, is it's a cross-cutting concern. It's not only developers, it's not only operations, it's not only infrastructure teams, but it's all of them, plus management. If your management is not on board, you can give up because it's a time effort and you have to have management on board, otherwise it's never going to work.
So how often do you experience things that blow up?
We're still a small startup, so for us it's not that common, but talking to customers, so I'm working for Instana. Instana is an application or a system for infrastructure and application performance monitoring. So we were built from the ground up for this infrastructure and microservice era. So everything which is highly dynamic, highly evolving in the sense of systems start and stop in the matter of seconds. And from looking at our customers, things go always wrong. If you have a large enough system, there's always something wrong. I make this joke like when your system runs like nice and every service is up, drink a beer, but it's probably never going to happen.
You also mentioned something that was interesting to me in terms of backups. Everybody backs up their systems, but how often do you restore them? How do you know your backup works?
Right, yeah, that's the best joke ever. You can ask 100 people, do you do backups? And everyone has his hand up. And then you ask like, so who regularly tries to restore the backup? And it's like, no. From my perspective, a backup is completely useless if you don't know you can actually restore it, right? From my own personal experience, I love things like point-in-time recovery from databases like Oracle, Postgres. Point-in-time recovery gives you the chance to actually roll back to every single statement just by the statement ID. It's beautiful. You execute it by accident, obviously. You never would do this on purpose. A delete from, and you forgot the where line or the where clause, and you delete everything, and you're like, oh, please restore right before that. And the data is there again. It's a beautiful thing.
So where are you based, Chris?
Germany. Yeah, so mid-Germany, close to the Dutch border.
And as a part of your job, you certainly get out a lot.
Yes, as part of my job, I'm flying around the world, telling people not only about Instana, but also, so from Instana point of view, I'm mostly talking to developers, which is a kind of new thing for us. So for me, the main purpose is to make sure people understand how to build the applications that Instana is supposed to monitor, right? So we're trying to educate people on the new era, on the stuff that they're supposed to build in the next, hopefully 10 years. Is probably more like the next 5 years.
So when you travel around, are you noticing any trends out there in terms of different places, different technology, different cultures, languages? I mean,
yes, there is definitely. I wouldn't call it trends, but there's definitely changes or differences in the way of adoption of new technology. So Japan, for example, is still very enterprise-driven. It's a lot of .NET stuff. It's a lot of old enterprise applications. Same for Germany. Germany is very conservative in that kind of sense. And then you look at the US, where it's like, oh, that's a new technology. Cool. Let's try it out, right? And then you have countries which are kind of in between, like Russia. They try to do a lot of new stuff. But you'll have the old companies. I think it's a mentality thing. And from the point of view of a cultural difference, as I said, I think in general it's a kind of mentality thing. If the mentality is more conservative, like in Japan and Germany, the adoption rate is much slower than same in Germany. I've just been to a university in New York in somewhere early this year, and they asked me, "Hey, could you give a talk to our students?" And they asked me the same question, like, "What is the difference between software engineering in Germany and software engineering in the US?" And I said, "Well, the US is way faster in adopting new technologies. In Germany, it's probably like in Japan." You have a prototype which runs for a half year. Then you have to certify it for another half year, and then it goes into production. That means you're 1 year into the life cycle of this specific version before it goes into production. And as a company, you have to provide that and support that.
So how often do you get to Japan?
This year, it's the second time. Normally, it's about once or twice a year.
Cool. All right. So. What's up with you after this conference?
That's the last one for this year. So I'm going back home. We just bought a house. Pretty nice. So I'm going to relax a little bit. I love it.
And you must have been out a lot this year then.
It's not as much as a couple of years ago, but it was still enough. Especially, as I said, we bought a house and we just moved in a couple of weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago. So I'm definitely happy to have a little bit of a relaxation time, settle in. And hopefully over the Christmas holidays, look into some new stuff. Like I definitely wanted to take a deeper look into Envoy and a couple of other technologies on the Kubernetes world. So that's my plan for this vacation time.
And you're also a Java champion in this whole mix as well, right? So what does a Java champion do?
Java Champions is kind of an appreciation program where you being recognized for educating about the JVM, Java ecosystem, but not only that, but also trying to help people translating stuff to other languages. There's a lot of stuff. So basically everything you do around the JVM or Java ecosystem can make you a Java champion. Which is a little bit special about the Java Champion program is that the current Java champions have to propose and choose the new ones. So that's very different from most of the other stuff that I see outside. Yes, and I have to say that Oracle doesn't have a hand in who becomes the Java champion, which is kind of interesting because all of the other stuff like Docker Captain and I, for myself, ran the Hazelcast Hero program when it was at Hazelcast. It's always that the company recognizes you, whereas Java champions, it's like other Java champions recognize, yes, you did something for the Java community, which is definitely worth appraising.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming by. Appreciate the conversation. I can hardly hear you right here. It's that loud. And so we'll see you next, I'm sure at the next conference. Thanks a lot, and talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye now.